that.
What's up, everyone? My name is Darko, and I'm here today with my friend Chris Dunn.
Hey, man.
What's up, bro?
What's going on?
We've known each other for about 5 years. He's an investor, and he's an entrepreneur out of Austin, Texas.
Yeah, for the time being.
For the time being.
Getting the hell out of there.
So I wanted to just shoot this quick video to really just bring Chris on, because he's here in Bali for a few weeks, and we've been friends for about, 5 years now?
Yeah. You were my spirit guide through Thailand a few times.
Yeah. And I wanted to bring him on because I wanted to get his insights on how his health journey has affected his business and what it means to be a healthy, functioning entrepreneur. And we're going to talk about what Chris likes to do in his spare time and all of the rest of it. And really get into more about you, really, and just share your insights and experience with everyone.
Yeah, cool. Happy to do that.
So a little bit about yourself before we get into it. Like, what's your story?
Oh, man. Well, I'll keep this brief.
Yes.
So I was always into the stock market ever since I was real young, and in high school got kind of active, and then tried going to college. That was not the route for me. I dropped out pretty much right away, but quickly after that became a full-time day trader. So I was trading futures and equities and did well for a while, and then over time the markets got more and more competitive, so it became harder and harder for individual traders to make consistent income doing that. And then around 2011, I heard of Bitcoin, and I thought it was a scam, pushed it off for a little bit. Long story short, over the next 2 years, did a bunch of research, and by the time 2013 came around, went all in on it. Quit day trading futures.
Wait, so you went all in on Bitcoin in 2013?
Yeah. As an investor, as a trader.
He's rich.
It's been a hell of a ride, man.
Yeah.
Let's just say that. That was definitely life-changing for sure.
Yeah. So take us fast forward from Bitcoin 2013.
Yeah, so started trading it. Everybody thought I was crazy. You know, people that knew me from the trading world were like, what the hell are you doing, man? Like, you're giving up these real markets for this fake internet money. And I'm like, look, guys, so I wrote a book in 2015, just a self-published book, just giving my thoughts, and went on a speaking circuit trying to convince hedge fund investors and traders, like, look, guys, this is not a fad. Like, it's here to stay, and this thing's going to blow up. And sure enough, over the next 2 years, it went crazy. And so that was kind of really interesting, being positioned as like the first guy doing YouTube videos about Bitcoin, and then we grew a community of investors. We have thousands of people from around the world that are a part of that and have been on that journey with us for the past 6-7 years. So,
wow. So that really put you on the map.
I guess so, yeah.
Because you forecasted this and it happened.
Yeah,
so
and
now you're like certified expert.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. So, if you want to be a successful investor, you have to do two things. You have to have a conviction about something and a belief in something that either everybody disagrees with you about, or they just don't see the potential yet, and you have to be right. So I looked at Bitcoin in the early days and I said, this is something that has the potential to really change the world and shake shit up.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that it was going to work. I didn't know how big or certainly how fast it was going to grow, but I had conviction that it was real and that I saw a real world use case for it. And I just saw it as like a way for the markets to become kind of democratized. Like, I saw how these hedge funds were pushing these high frequency algorithms and like basically manipulating the stock market in a way that made it really difficult for the small guy. And Bitcoin just changed that, and it gave the power back to the individual. They didn't need approval from some broker to trade. Like, you could be a fisherman in Myanmar, or like a digital entrepreneur in South Africa, or a former Wall Street guy in New York. It didn't matter. Everybody has access to this system. And I just thought that was super cool, and that it was really going to disrupt the financial services industry, which is about, I believe, 7 or 8% of US GDP, which is just a massive number. Like, there's so much room for growth even today.
So what are you doing now with Bitcoin? Are you holding, or are you shorted? Like, what do you do?
So I have a few different, what I call capital buckets.
Yep.
So like places that I put my money, and they each have different strategies. So strategy number one is cold storage, which is basically like if you own gold, you don't like trade it all the time. You keep it in a safe or bury it in your backyard or something.
Right.
And in the case the shit hits the fan and the dollar becomes devalued, you have that as a safe haven asset. The second is I do what's called position trading. So I'll buy Bitcoin when bubbles pop, because Bitcoin is super volatile. The price is always going up and crashing, and over time it's growing, and every year the lowest price becomes higher and higher. Everybody looks at the peaks of price, but really what you want to do is look at the yearly lows, and you'll see that the price, no matter how big the bubbles and the boom patterns are, the lows are always holding higher prices. So what I'll do is I'll basically position trade, where I'll buy and hold for several months to a couple of years, and when everybody goes crazy and the prices are too high, I'll sell, and then I'll take that USD and I'll put it away to buy back even more on the next market cycle. So as that capital base becomes larger, it just kind of compounds itself.
Smart.
Yeah.
I've never heard that strategy before, because I used to dabble in crypto about a year ago.
Yeah.
And all I was doing was just hodling, just buying it and holding it.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I mean, the problem is like everybody knows inherently, like you want to buy low and sell high, but like 99% of people actually end up doing the opposite. They end up buying high when everybody else is buying, and they end up panic selling the low. And it's all about the mentality. Like trading and investing is such a mental game. And like I said, like you have to have conviction when nobody else believes in it, and you have to be right with your timing. And that's a hard thing to do. And thankfully, like I had 15 years of experience before I got into Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So I had that mentality and I had that discipline. And that's why I, did YouTube videos on it and grew the community, because I genuinely want to help other people build wealth. And it's been cool to see how many people have actually done that.
Yeah.
Life-changing amounts of money.
This guy is changing lives, man. Seriously.
You're changing lives, bro. Getting people in shape. So just going back, when we first met, I was 40 pounds heavier, and
Oh, were you?
Yeah.
I didn't even know that. So yeah, so this is kind of interesting.
yeah. So Darko was always the ripped guy, and I always looked up to him and said, like, man, like he's doing something right. But I thought for me, like happiness was getting rich. And once that happened, I looked in the mirror and I'm like, man, you are not healthy. You are ugly. You're not happy. Like you're just like lethargic, getting sick all the time. And so over the past year, I've changed that. Like I've really put a bit much bigger emphasis on health, and it's been probably the most helpful thing I've done for productivity, for just day-to-day happiness, and just like feeling energetic and having stamina to get through really long work days or really challenging times. Like that is such a key element that it doesn't matter how much money you have. If you don't have health, man, you're screwed.
Yeah.
As you know.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. What was the turning point? I mean, you mentioned you looked in the mirror. Was that the decision? Was that the time where you thought, you know what, I'm just gonna commit to this?
Yeah. It was actually a struggle for me. Like I went back and forth a few times. So I have a buddy that lives in Austin. He's a personal trainer.
Yep.
And I trained with him for a while, and he's great. He was great at motivating me and just really trying to push me. But it wasn't until I took personal responsibility for everything, because I looked at him and I was like, well, let me just outsource my health to him. Let me just, I was like, come on, G, just tell me what to do. So I'd go to the gym and do the minimal amount, right?
Yes.
I would lift. He would kick my ass in the gym, but like when I went home, popping like 300 calorie IPAs, like just drinking way too much, not doing cardio, like not doing the things that I knew I needed to, and not eating clean, and just overindulging, snacking at night. And so I did this for like a couple of years, and it wasn't until he was like, Chris, you're an alcoholic, man. And I was like, no, I'm not, shut up. And I thought about it, I'm like, he might be right, man. Like he might be right. Like I'm on that path where like I have a goal, and like alcohol and like this stupid lifestyle is getting in the way of that. And like it was embarrassing to realize that, where I was like, shit, man, like you really are like undisciplined, and like you're saying you want this, but your actions aren't actually following that path. So I was like, man, I got to really commit to myself, and I have to make this happen. And so earlier this year, I think it was like March or something, I just took it really seriously. I'm like, I'm gonna go all in on this. And so for 4 months, I lost about 30 pounds over that time period. And
Congratulations, by the way.
Thanks, bro. Yeah. I mean, it's been great. And, you know, watching your motivational stuff on Instagram, like every day, I'm like, what's Darko talking about? Let me see what knowledge I can get out of here. Yeah. So,
man.
And I'm still not to where I want to be, right? Like,
Right.
I still have goals, and
Yes.
I still have, you know, some weight that I want to drop and tone up. And,
Yeah.
But so another motivation for me was my blood pressure. So the doctors were like, dude, you have high blood pressure. And I'm like, what? How is that possible? Like, I'm still pretty young. And that
How
was
old are
kind
you,
of a
by
wake-up call. 34 now.
Okay.
Yeah. But that was actually a few years ago that they said that. I was like, what? I know I'm like stressed because I'm dealing with large sums of money day in and day out, you know. But that to me was like a wake-up call, because my mom's dad, my grandfather, died at 60 of a heart attack. And I'm like, 60? You're like over halfway there, bro. Like, you better get your shit together. Like, and so I learned to enjoy cardio. That was another thing. Is like, I was like, man, getting on the treadmill and just running to nowhere, like, that's not fun. Like, I hated that. So I had to find cardio that like was actually fun, which for me was mountain biking. And so getting out on a trail and just like, and I would like track the calories, and I'd be like, damn, I just burned like 1,000 calories in the last hour and a half. And it was fun, and like, and it was challenging, and like, it didn't feel like I was just like, oh, come on. So that's something I really fell in love with, and have been able to keep doing.
Wow. So let's go back to the blocks that you were experiencing, because I find this fascinating, because we can be successful in one area of our life, like for example, you in trading and investing, but then those same habits that you had there were kind of hard to bring into this realm of health.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. The mental side of health is like, it's the hardest thing I've done. Like, just being so focused and disciplined over a long period of time. You know, it's easy to get like all motivated and committed and then like have 2 weeks of consistency and then fall off.
Yep.
It's one thing to like actually sustain it over a long time. And we were talking about this the other night. You have to like you were saying, you got to change who you think you are. Who do you view yourself as?
Yep.
I always viewed myself as the type A, kind of like chunky guy who like made good money. But like, I had to flip that in my mind and say like, no, like, you can be the healthy guy. You can be the guy that people look at and go, man, like, he actually looks pretty good, and like, he's healthy. He's making good choices. He's out. He's not just sitting on the computer for 12 hours a day. So.
And that's what I think a lot of people do, right? Especially when you're starting out as an entrepreneur, or even if you're trying to scale your business, like, you think, I don't know, man, it's just like, so many guys I speak with, they just want to work more.
Yeah.
It's like the addiction to pursuing more and more, but to the detriment of their health.
Yeah. One thing I noticed is like, as I've gotten healthier this year, my workload has actually fallen, but my productivity has gone up. So it's like, I'm not just doing work for work's sake. I'm doing meaningful work because my mind is more clear. And, you know, developing that habit of like getting up and just starting my day with the workout routine and a healthy meal makes whatever those next like 4 to 6 hours of deep work are that much more impactful. So, yeah, I mean, and I had this before where I would do like the 12 to 16 hour work day, and I would see my friends and family going to the gym, and they'd be like, Chris, why don't you come? And be like, no, I gotta fucking be here and like do this and make this money. And like, if I would have just done that and broken the tension and been more healthy, I could have probably been leagues beyond where I am now.
So yeah, that's another question I was going to ask you is, do you wish you had started this sooner?
Of course, absolutely. But like, I don't regret, you know, it's easy to say woulda, shoulda, coulda.
Yeah.
But like, I'm just glad that I finally said, you know what, enough is enough. Like, look yourself in the mirror, and if you're saying one thing and doing another, like, that's a problem. And so I had to get those in alignment. And I still mess up. Like, I still will go out and party and drink too much on occasion. But one thing I've learned to do is get up and like, as my friend Garrett says, sweat out the demons. Like, get up and like, don't just be lethargic the next day. It's like if you have a bad meal or if you drink too much beer, like don't beat yourself up and completely get derailed. Say like, okay, like you made some choices there, get back on and just don't do the thing where like you fall off and then every day becomes harder and harder to get back on the track.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. And I saw your post that you posted about your update on your fitness journey.
Yeah.
And you were saying how you've been struggling for like 10 years with your weight?
Yeah.
Something
Well,
like that?
so I was like super lean in high school because I was playing hockey all the time. And then I went immediately into the workforce and like trying to hustle and make money. And with that came beer and long days, and like I ballooned up to like 225, over 225. And now I'm like 180. I think I can get down to like the mid 170s.
Yep.
and be like real lean. So I'm getting there little by little, and like obviously like traveling for me is a challenge because with that comes less consistent meals, more partying and stuff like that. But like nice thing about Bali is there's healthy food everywhere.
Yes.
So this has actually been nice. I think I need to weigh myself, but I feel like I'm actually maintaining, if not even getting leaner these past couple of weeks.
Yeah. So your productivity's up, your energy's up.
Yep.
And you're making more money now.
Yeah.
As a result of this, right?
Yeah, and it's not even so much about like the direct like, okay, what's the dollar amount? For me, it just feels better. Like it just feels like I am making more impact with less effort.
Right.
And I'm more clear.
Yeah. So let's talk about your extracurricular activities, because you like to go trekking a lot, hiking.
Yeah.
And you're traveling all around Europe. I was seeing you in Norway recently.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that, because I remember your post, you were talking about what you wanted, which is a body that's fit to carry you around the world and do what you want to do, which is like hike and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So how has that helped you being in better shape recently?
Yeah, so we went to Norway and did this 20-mile hike, and the old me would have like really suffered during that.
Yeah.
And would have just felt kind of lethargic, and maybe my mile 6, 7, or 8 like been like, oh, this sucks. But I felt so good, and so just like the entire way. We had some people that had some issues, like somebody fell and I had to carry an extra backpack, and some other girls like needed help, and like I was able to do that with no problem.
You're like, here, give me your bag. I got your bag.
yeah, it was cool. But one thing that happened from that is I actually did have an injury, a knee injury, patellar tendonitis, which is it's more of a I guess like a chronic thing that sneaks up on you. And what I realized is like I had a lot of imbalances in my legs because I had an ankle injury probably 5 years ago, and then my mobility was really bad, and then this knee was overcompensating, and it came out on the hike, like almost when we were done. I was like, man, my knee is really hurting. Like it's never hurt like this before. So when I got home, went to a physio, and he's like, yeah, this is patellar tendonitis. This ankle's super tight, which affected this, and I'm like, okay. So I've been lifting, I've been doing cardio, and I've been stretching. But like now it's time to really fix those imbalances and find out like, okay, when I'm squatting, are my knees protruding? And, am I doing little things that are gonna really have a negative impact over time?
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at now. That's what kind of my focus is.
Yeah, and that's what I like to focus on as well, like the mobility.
Yeah.
We're sitting down all day at a laptop in this position.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna go like do exercise and stuff like that. So we create these imbalances. Like even now we're sitting here, our body's like adjusting to this pose. Right?
Yeah.
So then it's gonna get used to this pose. So any other pose, for example, in a squat where our hips lower, like like I was demonstrating to you yesterday.
Yeah.
Like our body's just not gonna like it.
Yeah.
And over time, it's kind of like how I injured my shoulder. Like over time, like just like your knee, like all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, like that doesn't feel good. Never felt that before. Yeah, it just builds up.
Yeah, I mean it's true, man. The hip flexors, shoulders rounded. So like past few months I've been really focused on like opening the chest, pulling this back, stretching the hip flexors, opening that, and like I've noticed a big difference, but I've also noticed how long I have to go because 30 something years of just really bad habits in that way of just not stretching.
Yeah. So do you feel like you're becoming a different person, like a better version of yourself right
I
now?
hope so.
Do you feel like your identity is changing slowly? Like you're the healthy guy now.
My self-identity has, right? Like, old me would have been like, oh yeah, go overboard and go back to the buffet 2 or 3 times, or get a bunch of really bad shit and eat late at night. Where now I'm like, no, you know what? That's not worth it. I know what that's gonna do to my confidence the next day. I want to be able to trust myself.
Yeah.
And I know when I break that, it's kind of like a broken contract with myself. And that just doesn't feel good. And if you do that enough times, then you won't be able to trust yourself, and you'll be like, all right, well, forget it.
Right.
And I did that for so many years. And I made a commitment, no, never again. I'm gonna make mistakes, I'm gonna fall off from time to time, but I'm gonna stay on that path.
Yeah.
If I fall to the side a little bit, get back on it. No excuses. Don't beat yourself up. Don't make excuses and just kind of drift off somewhere. It's no, get back on as soon as possible.
Yeah. I mean, for people watching, what Chris just said, what he just said is everything they've heard before, but they're still not doing it.
Yeah.
So it's like you before, the old Chris.
Yeah.
He would have heard that and still wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
So what is the switch for those people?
That's such an interesting thing, right? Yeah, because I've heard, you interview people, I've seen testimonials from all these different programs, and it's what is that switch that makes somebody go, you know what, fuck it, let's do this? For me, it was my friend telling me point blank, dude, you are messing up big time, and he didn't want to work with me anymore. He was
really?
done with me, yeah, because he was you're wasting my time, and I'm damn, dude, I'm letting my friend down. And for me, that was kind of embarrassing, and was man, no, I got to show him that I actually can do this, and I got to show myself. I got to prove it to myself.
Yeah.
What am I doing? I'm getting older. I'm making commitments to myself and then breaking them all the time. What kind of man is that, right? Who are you? And it wasn't until I looked in the mirror and had that really tough conversation and made a real commitment, and I had to make it real. I just had to really sit down and say enough is enough and let's do this. So I think until somebody gets to a breaking point like that, it's going to be easier to kind of waver back and forth. But it's so worth it. It's so worth it. Once you finally show yourself and you start to see results, it's yes, dude. Then the confidence just comes, and it's just stick with it.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
all you got to do.
So I think for you, it's you got a mentor, and you had that accountability.
Yeah.
Right? That's key. If you didn't have that, you'd still be, carrying out your bad habits probably.
Yeah.
Snacking at night and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, accountability is huge, right? So you make the commitment, and then if you can have somebody like you that is behind that going, okay, what's the commitment? Stay on track. Okay, you fell off, don't beat yourself. If you can have somebody in the background, that I think is going to increase the probability of success exponentially.
Yeah. So what are your goals now with your health moving forward? I mean, we spoke about you want to be in shape for hiking and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What other goals do you have?
So I don't know if it's a specific weight goal. I think now it's more of a body fat goal, because I don't really know what the right weight for me is. I just know okay, I want to get even leaner. I dropped the bulk of the being obese. My body mass index was I was right on that, over the line of being obese. So I'm down to a good weight, but I'm not shredded yet. I want to actually get tapered and have the abs. So that's kind of my next goal.
So let's talk about that. So why do you want to have that? Why do you want to have the abs?
Man, great question. For me, it's just I want to see what I can do, how far I can push it. And also the other goal is the mobility stuff, just for longevity. And
Right.
I think about okay, the next few decades are going to tick along pretty quickly. And I don't want to be that guy who's lethargic and can't play with my kids, or can't get up and go and do a 20-mile hike. I want to be that guy that, when I'm older, 60 something, people look at me and go, man, how's he doing that? He's kicking ass,
Right.
keeping up with guys 30 years younger than him. So I think for me, like, that's the long-term play, and then in the short term is like set these milestones that like it isn't really like a vanity thing of like I want abs, so you know chicks think I'm hot. Like it's more like let me see what I can do. Let me just see how far I can take it.
Right. So like you want to fulfill your potential.
Yeah.
Because you know what your potential is, and you just want to keep going, progressing closer to that goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to be like Aaron Darko. Man.
Well, that's funny because a lot of people look at me and they're like, well, I mean, for example, let's take old Chris, right?
Yeah.
Old Chris would have looked at me, and then I don't know if this was what was going through your head, but because I wasn't like in the shape I am now then, you'd have looked at me and be like, I could never be that ripped, or man, that guy's doing shit that I could never do. Because I think about that when I look at people that are above my level in fitness, right? So it's interesting to ask you, like, what would go through your head when you see ripped guys like before?
I think it was like I'm not willing to do what it takes to get there. You know, and like I remember even hanging out with you, like you would just make different choices. Like several years ago, we'd be out and like I'd have a few extra beers and you'd be like, no, I'm good. Or, you know, I just remember your food choices would be healthier and I just really wouldn't care. So I think you know, we have to look at, okay, what is the goal and what are we willing to do to attain that, right? And I've learned to actually like eating healthy food. Like I thought it was like, you know, the D word, right? Like diet. I know you don't like that word.
Yeah.
I looked at diets as like short-term fixes that like, okay, if I can just get through 30 days, I'll be shredded. Like that's not what it's about. It's
right.
like, you got to learn how to love eating a clean, nutritious meal plan or what, you know, whatever you want to call it. And like, I found a plan that actually worked for me. Like where when I got in the routine, I'm like, man, this food is actually good. And it's something I can do every day and not burn out on. Right. And like, it's funny because like I was vegetarian for 3 years.
Yeah.
And I was my fattest being vegetarian. At my heaviest level, I was vegetarian.
Did you guys hear that?
Yeah. And that was because I wasn't, just because you're vegetarian doesn't mean you eat healthy. It was a lot of pasta. It was mostly carbs. It was probably like a few hundred grams of carbs a day and not good carbs. I mean, pasta, bread, bullshit, right? And like, when I wasn't getting meat, and here's what happened. I tried working out when I was a vegetarian, like doing this 7-minute workout thing where it was basically like push-ups, lunges, like just body weight stuff. I had like a shoulder injury because my muscles had deteriorated so bad. And then, yeah, I was like, man, this is terrible. So now, you know, after watching you guys over the past 6 months or so, leaning more into the carnivore side of things, I've been flirting with that and really cut down my carbs, especially the bad carbs, and just really bumped up the protein and fat. That's been next level too. So I feel like I can sustain that and I enjoy that. And, you know, diets and like beliefs about diets are funny to me, right? Like, cause you have the hardcore like vegetarian or vegan crowd, you have the hardcore like carnivore crowd. Like my opinion is like, I don't know what's best for everybody. I just know what feels best for me.
Yep.
And that's what you got to do, I guess.
And that's ultimately my role in this is to empower you to find what's best for you.
Yeah.
And what's best for, like we said, longevity, right? Like, because there's certain things that, you know, if you're eating certain foods, you're not getting certain nutrients and all that kind of stuff. And sure, it won't have the immediate short-term impacts right now, but long-term it will, right?
Yeah.
Like, for example, I met this guy and he was on a very low-calorie diet for 2 years, and he lost like 100 pounds. But now he's having gallbladder surgery to remove his gallbladder, because basically when you're on a very low-calorie diet and you're not getting enough fat, your gallbladder goes. Your gallbladder goes, yeah.
Okay.
So you need to remove it. So that's the side effect of a low-calorie diet over the long term, right? Because he's omitting certain nutrients.
Yeah.
He's not getting fats in, and your body needs fat. So that's one of the examples. So yeah, it's just about doing the things that are going to serve you long term, right?
Yeah.
So finding the optimal way of eating, not diet, way of eating for you, so you can sustain it for life.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because people will do diets and meal plans to achieve a result, not thinking about the long term, right?
Yeah.
And you can do both. I think you can have like a healthy meal plan that is also good for the long term.
Yeah. So, any parting tips, advice for people who are, because a lot of the audience here is people that are entrepreneurs like yourself.
Yeah.
Maybe they're an investor, maybe they're internet marketing, whatever they're doing, but they're working for themselves and they're trying to scale their business and they're already really successful, but their health is not where it needs to be.
Yeah. I mean, I've been there, and it's something that I feel like for the person who's sitting there going, yeah, man, like a lot of that resonates. Like I understand what it's like to do the wavering back and forth and making commitments to yourself and then breaking them. Like I've been there, and I don't feel like I necessarily have the answer. I just know what has kind of worked for me, which is like look yourself in the mirror and say, are my actions reflecting my words? And if not, that's a problem. And make those two converge and get help, like seek somebody like Aaron Darko, who has done this and helped other people get amazing results.
Keep talking, bro. Keep talking.
Yeah, no, really though, man. I mean, it helps to have that accountability.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I mean, it sucks to do it alone, but ultimately, I think it does require somebody to take full responsibility. Like if you just go, okay, well, I'm going to outsource my health to Aaron, that's not going to work. Like you have to own that shit. You have to say, okay, I'm getting help from Aaron. He's going to be my spirit guide on this journey to health. But like at the end of the day, it's up to me to execute that.
Absolutely.
And you have to look at yourself in the mirror and make a commitment and figure out what your why is. Like, why do you want to do that? Do you want to have longevity? Do you want to be able to play with your kids? Do you want to be healthy so you can work more productive and with a more clear mind?
Absolutely.
And just have self-confidence, man. And what that does, it's kind of like a snowball effect, where it's like you get a little bit of a result, which feeds the fire inside yourself to get even more results and to not screw up. And if you do, get back quick.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like that's the same advice you give your students, right?
Yeah.
In terms of investing. Similar
It's
advice.
very similar. Yeah, because you're going to make bad trades, you're going to make bad investments, but stay in the game. Survival, learn how to survive and then thrive as an investor or an entrepreneur. The same is true with health. It's like just stay in the game, stay on that track.
Yes. Yeah. So where can people find out more about you?
ChrisDunn.com, my YouTube channel, Chris Dunn TV, social media, at Chris Dunn TV everywhere.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Guys, bring in the wisdom. So if you want to get more tips on investing, check out Chris. And look him up on social media. It's been awesome, man. This has been epic. Like,
yeah, man.
Bali, like, I'm about to enjoy. We're going to go to the beach shortly.
Yeah,
Like
good
half an
times,
hour.
dude.
Yeah, man.
Good to see you.
Thanks very much for coming.
Thanks for having me, man.
We'll talk to you soon.
See you guys.
Bye.